Why Web 5? What happened to Web 4? Why jump directly from Web 3 to Web 5?
Oh yes, the mysterious missing of Web 4. But actually, the idea behind Web 5 is more symbolic. It's Web 2 plus Web 3. So Web 2's easy to use experience combined with Web 3's decentralized principles, and we get Web 5, which isn't just the next version, it's a fusion. Jack Dorsey, who is behind this, through his company TBD, wanted to make a statement. This isn't about jumping to the next big thing, it's about merging the best of both worlds.
Welcome to Blockchain की बात नेटकैप के साथ, the podcast where we break down complex blockchain topics into easy to understand conversation. I'm your host Simran, and today we are diving into a bold and visionary topic that's catching the attention of every Web3 enthusiast across the globe. Web 5 and the future of digital identity. Let's imagine this for a second. Every time you log into a website or use an app, you are giving away a little piece of your data like your name, email, preferences, and all of it get stored in a database you don't control. But what if that could change? What if you could actually own your data, credentials, and digital identity without relying on any centralized authority? To help us understand this revolutionary shift from today's internet to a future where identity is truly user-owned, I have got with me someone who can share their insight in this space, our most loved blockchain expert, Ruchi. Ruchi, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Simran ma'am. I'm super excited to dive into Web 5 because it's not just a buzzword anymore. It's a powerful shift in the way we interact online.
Let's start from the basic. What exactly is Web 5 and how does it compare to Web 1, 2 and 3?
Okay, let's understand it this way. Imagine the internet growing up like a person does, going through different life stages. Web 1 was like the internet's childhood. Think back to the 1990s and early 2000s. It was like a giant library. You could go in, read a book, or in this case, a web page, but you couldn't talk back. Remember Yahoo, Rediffmail, those early blogs? You could read content but couldn't interact with it. Web 1 was the read-only phase with static pages and the very first websites where you could only consume content. Then came Web 2, the teenage years of the internet, starting around, let's say, 2005. Suddenly, things got social. You could post photos, like, comment, and shop online. It became a digital hangout. But here's the twist. Companies started collecting and controlling your data. Facebook, Google, Instagram, they owned the identity. You logged in with your email, but they stored and controlled all your personal information. So even if you posted something, say on Instagram, the platform could decide what shows up or even delete it without your permission. Web 2 was all about the interaction, but the power still sat with the platforms. Then comes the Web 3, and we can call this the rebellion phase. Starting around 2017, Web 3 introduced decentralization and the concept of no middleman. Now you could actually own digital assets using blockchain, NFTs, and crypto. But here's the catch. Identity and data still not fully involved. And even today, we log into many apps using Gmail. So yes, we might own the money, but we are still using someone else's ID card. Web 3 gave us the ownership, but identity is still a work in progress. Web 5 is what we can call the mature phase of the internet. You know how with Web 3, the big idea is that you get to own your money, not just some platform. Well, Web 5 takes that a step further. It's not just about owning your money, it's about owning your identity too. Web 5 is being developed by TBD, which is Jack Dorsey's company. It basically blends the smooth, user-friendly app experience we are used to in the Web 2 space with the decentralization and ownership models of Web 3. Right now, when you log into a food delivery app, you're using your email or phone number and your order history and the location. All of that goes straight to the company. But with Web 5, you log in using your decentralized ID and the app only sees what you choose to share. You still get all the convenience, but now you control your data. That's freedom, privacy, and ease all rolled into one.
Wow, Ruchi, that was such a crystal clear breakdown. I honestly never looked at the internet like stages of life before, but it makes total sense now. Web 1 was like reading a newspaper, Web 2 was when we started posting selfies, Web 3 gave us crypto and NFT, and now Web 5 is like finally getting our digital identity back into our own hands. Seriously, that's eye-opening. But now comes the $1 million question, and trust me, everyone thinking about it. Why Web 5? What happened to Web 4? Why jump directly from Web 3 to Web 5?
Oh yes, the mysterious missing of Web 4. But actually, the idea behind Web 5 is more symbolic. It's Web 2 plus Web 3. So Web 2's easy to use experience combined with Web 3's decentralized principles, and we get Web 5, which isn't just the next version, it's a fusion. Jack Dorsey, who is behind this, through his company TBD, wanted to make a statement. This isn't about jumping to the next big thing, it's about merging the best of both worlds. So, no, Web 4 wasn't skipped, it was blended in. The whole goal is to say, let's take the usability of Web 2 and the values of Web 3 and create something that's truly built around the user.
Interesting, but many people say Web 3 is already about user control. So, why is Web 5 even needed?
That's a valid point. Web 3 definitely kicked off the ownership movement with wallets, NFTs, DAOs, all great steps forward. But here's the catch. Web 3 doesn't fully solve identity, and most apps today still rely on Google logins or email signups. Even MetaMask, which we all use, isn't an identity tool. It's just a cryptographic key. This is where Web 5 brings something new to the table. It introduces decentralized identifiers or DIDs and verifiable credentials which let you prove who you are without oversharing data or depending on a third party. Just imagine, you don't have to keep uploading your Aadhaar or PAN again and again. Your verifiable ID stays with you, not sitting on someone else's server.
Okay, that gave me chills, Ruchi. I mean, we talk about privacy all the time, but we are so used to handing over Aadhaar, PAN, selfies, even for the smallest thing like ordering grocery or signing up for a new app. But the way you explained how Web 5 flips the power dynamics and give us back control, that's seriously game changing. Now you mentioned some interesting terms earlier like decentralized identifier and verifiable credentials. I am sure many listeners are wondering, Ruchi, can you break those down for us a bit more? What exactly are DIDs and VCs? And are there any other key component of Web 5 we should know about it?
Yes, so Web 5 is built on three core pillars: DIDs, VCs, and DWNs, and together they completely shift how we experience the internet. Let's break them down. So first, DIDs or decentralized identifiers. This is basically your digital identity, but here's the cool part. You own it. Not a company, not the government, but you. It's just like the kind of having an Aadhaar card, but stored securely in your device. And you get to decide who sees it and when. No need to rely on Google or Facebook to log in. You use your own DID fully under your control. Next, we have VCs or verifiable credentials. And think of these like digital certificates or proofs issued by someone you trust. Your university might issue you a digital degree, or your workplace could give you a verified proof of employment. These are digitally signed, tamper-proof, and fully verifiable, but still under your control. You can share just the information needed, like providing you are over 18, and without sharing your full ID. And finally, DWNs or decentralized web nodes. This is where it gets exciting. Think of DWNs as your personal private cloud, and instead of having your data scattered across dozens of apps, your information lives inside your own DWN. When an app needs access, maybe your address or preferences, it sends you a request and you decide what to share. So your data isn't being sold, mined, or stored without you knowing. It stays with you and only you choose who gets the access. Put all of that together, DIDs, VCs, and DWNs, and you've got the foundation of Web 5. A new kind of internet where your identity, your privacy, and your data are all under one control. It's a whole new way of being online and on your own terms.
There are other identity projects like Polygon ID and UBot. How is Web 5 different from them?
Great observation. And most of the current solutions out there are blockchain first, which is great in many ways. But they often come with extra steps like gas fees, setting up wallets, and understanding crypto basics. Web 5 flips that. It's user-centric, designed to work even without crypto. It's built with mobile first and even offline use cases in mind. So imagine this. A farmer in rural India could verify their land ownership or prove their age without ever needing to open a blockchain app or worrying about tokens. That's the beauty of it. Web 5 is built for the people, not just for crypto natives.
But what are the hurdles? What challenges could Web 5 face in mass adoption?
Yes, of course, there are a few challenges for sure. First, awareness. Most users don't even realize that they are constantly giving up their data just to use everyday apps. Then there's developer adoption. For this to take off, apps need to start building DID compatible login flows and experiences. And of course, policy and compliance play a big role too. Governments need to recognize and support self-sovereign identity systems for them to work at scale. But the good news is that momentum is already building. Projects like Microsoft's ION and even India's own digital locker are moving in this direction, so the shift is definitely happening.
Ruchi, we have talked a lot about the power of Web 5. But let's be real. Everything sounds great in theory. What about the real world use case of Web 5? And how will it impact our daily lives?
That's such an important question, ma'am, because honestly, technology only matters when it can actually make life easier or safer for people. Let me walk you through a few real life examples where Web 5 can shine, especially in a country like India. KYC without oversharing. Imagine signing up for a service by just proving your age or identity without uploading your full Aadhaar, PAN, or those endless selfies. And then we can say smarter job applications. You could share verifiable credentials from your university or employer, instantly cutting off fake resumes and long drawn out verification processes. Then we have controlled access to health data also. Your medical records could be stored privately in your DWN and you would share only what's needed with full consent when you choose to. And log in without Google or Facebook. Just use your decentralized ID, no tracking, no selling your data, and no middlemen. So yeah, Web 5 isn't just a tech upgrade. It's about giving people real control in ways that genuinely matter.
What does the future of digital identity look like in 5 to 10 years with Web 5? Can you paint a picture for us, Ruchi?
In the next decade, you'll own your identity the same way you own your phone number today. You log in into the app without needing passwords. You'll verify things like your age or qualifications without sharing all your details, and your health, education, and financial records. They will live with you, not sitting on someone's company's servers, and it's like kind of UPI but for identity and trust.
That was incredibly insightful, Ruchi. Thank you so much for being with us and simplifying such a complex and futuristic concept, from understanding the root of Web 5 to how it can transform the way we manage digital identity. This conversation has been nothing short of enlightening. To all our listeners, if this episode sparked your curiosity, do share it with your friends, fellow builders and tech enthusiasts. Stay tuned to Blockchain Ki Baat NetGap के साथ for more such thoughtful conversation around blockchain, decentralization and future of technology. Until next time, this is Simran signing off. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and more importantly, stay decentralized.